Now presenting
the RK Ultra Podcast,
Expanding Your Minds.
whether you want it or not.
Welcome to RK Ultra. Now, Halloween might have ended, but Halloween continues in our hearts and minds throughout the year. So we're going to talk about horror movies one more time. Just one more time, I think. We're going to be talking about the practical effects in some of our favorite older horror movies.
Yeah, like practical special effects, like heads getting blown off, on screen.
Yeah, makeup.
Throats getting slit, makeup.
The stuff, the good stuff.
The stuff that you can see visually and it's real and it's happening, and it's just so much better than the CGI.
I agree. And to talk about that with us today, we're bringing back Kristin.
Hi.
Kristin, thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having me. CGI sucks.
Totally, I
just
agree.
want to throw it out. It's just...
Yeah. Nothing beats that getting their limbs ripped off, fake limbs, blood splurting everywhere, and it's the unpredictability of those prop gags, those practical special effects that I think really just adds a flair to it.
It's not flair. It's real. It's what makes it real.
Yeah.
Somebody put so much effort into trying to recreate something so disgusting that could happen to a human being, to the point where there are certain movies that you can watch where you're seeing a scene where something grotesque is happening, and you're literally visualizing that actually happening in real life, and that's what makes that connection between the audience and the film.
Yeah, and they do that with KY jelly and strawberry jam and just crazy things.
Absolutely.
Anything.
Well, Aliens, my all-time favorite movie ever. It's in my top 5, and it's literally number 1. When they're looking at the actual alien and they flip it over, that's all it's just scallops, mussels, shrimp. It's all seafood, raw seafood.
Really?
But your mind by that point in the film is already so invested in what's happening because of all the visual effects, the special effects, everything, that by the time you get to that scene, you're already in it. This is real. This is happening. These are things. And they're sucking to their face. And then you flipped over and you're like, oh my God, it's got muscles. And you're like, no, it's literally a scallop. It's just cool what that can do to your mind to make it so much more impactful.
Oh, for sure. And one movie that really just comes to mind is The Thing.
Oh.
John Carpenter's The Thing from 1982. The practical special effects in that movie are just mind-blowing. They're still shocking to today. This dude sculpted fused bodies and created these grotesque eyes everywhere, guts, blood, tentacles, everything, puppetry, just using reverse motion to make it look like there are tentacles shooting out. So what they'd do is they'd pull the tentacle through, and then they'd play it in reverse, and it would look like it was coming out like that. Just crazy things like that. And I think actually my favorite scene in that is when they're doing the paddle compressions on the guy who passed out from a heart something, and his chest or his gut opens up into a mouth. And the guy's arms get ripped off in the chest mouth. and I think even just the guy's arms getting ripped off is cool because they put in a double amputee with fake arms there, so they actually ripped off fake arms on this dude. But it's creating that scene is insane. The amount of work that they put 10 hours of work just to make that 3-minute scene where
But look at the impression it left on you.
Yeah,
It's worth it.
That's also the scene where the head melts off and then grows legs and crawls away.
Into a spider. That's an iconic scene. That's the one I think about every time I think about that movie.
Yeah.
It's just so gross. I love it.
Oh, for sure.
It must be getting lazy with CGI nowadays. Just simple practical effects from low-budget horror movies were the most amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I had the pleasure of meeting Amanda West from A Nightmare on Elm Street, the first girl that dies in that movie.
Tina!
Run!
And I
had to do it.
I was like, I don't know if this is a weird thing to say to a person, but that death scene is my favorite scene in any movie ever. It literally changed my life. She seemed pretty flattered by it, but it's very simple. They just built a room that was rotatable, and they just flipped the room over, and they strapped the boyfriend to the floor, which was the ceiling, while Tina dies slowly on the ceiling, which is actually the floor. You know, just the most simple practical effects. But I mean, the first time you watch that movie, you'd never know it. You never know how exactly they did that. It's just simple gravity, and you know, it's beautiful.
I love the Johnny Depp death scene in that one,
Oh,
where
yeah.
it's just gallons and gallons and buckets of blood just shooting out. I'm sure they also used the reversible room for that.
It was the same reversible room, and yeah, they just dumped a bunch of blood through it and wrecked a whole room with it.
You know, that was Johnny Depp's first movie.
Yep. Yeah.
It was on 21 Jump Street, the TV series before that, but never had a movie role.
I thought 21 Jump Street was after Nightmare on Elm Street.
I thought it was. I'm pretty sure it was before. Yeah.
Huh. Because he got into filmmaking because of Nick Cage. He was actually just a musician, and he made friends with Nicolas Cage. And Nicolas Cage was like, hey, you should try acting. And Johnny Depp's like, nah, I'm a musician. He's like, but I really need to pay the rent. So he actually started going on auditions, and that's when he got Poltergeist.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
Or I'm sorry, Nightmare on Elm Street,
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
interesting.
And I mean, we can't talk about practical special effects without mentioning Tom Savini, the legendary special effects artist.
Yeah, he is pretty legendary.
Like he did special effects for the original Friday the 13th in 1980, which interestingly enough, it has the first on-screen movie decapitation when he decapitates or when she decapitates Pamela Voorhees. You know,
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. It was just some dude.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was hunched over, and they put a mannequin head that was like an exact copy of Pamela Voorhees on there, and Kevin Bacon. Kevin Bacon's in that movie.
Kevin Bacon's in every movie.
I know that. That's the beauty of it. He gets pierced through the throat, and like there's like a guy under the bed just like he's shooting the blood through a little tube.
You know, it's kind of amazing if you think about it. I mean, when these movies came out, it was so like raw and cutting edge and new. And I think like 80s as a decade was really transformative for special effects. I mean, some of my favorite movies growing up as a kid were Gremlins, Poltergeist, The Fly, you know, like especially The Fly. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, the 7 stages of the metamorphosis, and it was so much different than the original because they really wanted it to be up close, personal. They really wanted you to be able to see everything, each phase of changing of Jeff Goldblum.
I was about to say.
And it's like one of the first phases where like the teeth start to fall out and the nails start to fall out. I mean, granted it's prosthetics, but it's like, that's insane. And then the next phase is like when they get the hair. I mean, he would sit in makeup for a minimum of like 5 hours just to get the front of his arms done with all of the fake hair. And, you know, I don't know, man. There's just something about those 80s movies that paved the way for a lot of stuff. I mean, Poltergeist is one of my favorite movies. Came out in 1982. I was 1. When I got a little older, like 5 or 6, like I stumbled across the film, and I mean, like the scene with the steak, you know what I'm talking about?
5 or 6.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you know, I was an advanced child.
Oh, man.
I was a special child.
Must have been terrifying.
It was, are you kidding me? I used to hide behind the chair, my dad's recliner, and I used to like watch it. I did the same thing with Jaws. Like, I'd want to watch it.
Yeah.
But it was so scary then that it was like, I don't want to watch it, but I'm going to watch it. And I would literally hide behind the recliner and like, I'd squint my eyes when something scary was coming up. But I mean, one of my favorite scenes of all time is the squirming steak in Poltergeist. Have you ever seen it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I, you know, always wondered like, how the hell did they do that? And it was really, they actually used a real steak, and there was a slit in the tile, and they had a guy underneath, and it was with wire, and they were just simulating the creep. And then they just literally punched a hole into the steak, and then all the maggots came out of it. But when you watch the movie, you just, you know, your mind's just like, the steak's moving. Like all rational thought goes out the window, you know?
Didn't I think it was Poltergeist where they used the actual human remains, like skeletons
In the scene towards the end. And Jo Beth Williams was like, oh my God.
Yeah, she was like unaware at the time of the filming.
Absolutely 100%.
They didn't tell the actors.
And that's why they're saying that movie was cursed as well. You know, the cast and everything is cursed is because they used actual human skeletons in the pool scene.
There's a curse?
Oh yeah, it's a supposed curse. A lot of the actors didn't make it.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
God.
Joe Beth is like the only one that's left, and Craig T. Nelson because he's coach and coach can't die. So, but the rest of them are like done. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Another one, another favorite one of mine is Gremlins.
Gremlins. Yeah. Again, maybe I'll watch it.
Those
someday.
are all like animatronics, right?
So Poltergeist was not animatronics. Poltergeist was actually cutting edge at the time. They were one of the first movies to create the rotating box where you actually strap the director in and you can slide the director around the box.
Oh, cool.
And rotate the room. That's how they got the scene where towards the end where they think that the entity is gone. Carol Ann is back. Mom gets like dragged across the bed, up the wall, over the ceiling, and then back down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no animatronics in that one. And they actually did used industrial light and sound. George Lucas's company to do Poltergeist.
Oh, nice.
So, but animatronics and puppeteering was super heavy in Gremlins.
Yeah,
and actually,
exactly.
a lot of people have said it's some of the best puppeteering they've ever seen in a movie.
I know. I actually watched Gremlins like a week or two ago with my girlfriend, and I was like, man, I really want one of these.
Oh,
They're so cute.
The little
Like,
Mogwai.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gizmo's the shit.
Yeah.
They used to have little Gizmo dolls when I was a kid that you could buy, and they were super realistic.
Really?
Yeah, totally realistic. And that was one of the first films where they actually brought something from the film and created it for mass production that was like as close to the prop that they used in the movie. And so when you bought a Gremlin, it was like really expensive, but it was super awesome because it's like, you know, the eyes and even like the eyeballs and the ears and the way they flopped and the way that the fur felt, like it was insane.
Yeah.
Just insane.
I think one of my favorite transformation scenes in a movie, like sticking with the 80s, is American Werewolf in London. Do you remember that brutal werewolf? Yeah, where everything just stretches out.
Yep. I always with the snout. The snout always looked like it was the worst part.
Yeah.
Ugh.
The hands are just stretching out, forming like hooves, and it was done by Rick Baker, who was a famous special effects artist. He did like Michael Jackson's transformation in like some of his videos
And
too.
Thriller.
Oh,
and all
Thriller.
that.
Yeah.
And Thriller, yeah. But such an amazing, brutal scene, and it looks like it's like stop motion animation, but it's not. It's all prosthetics and makeup.
Makeup's a crazy thing.
Yeah. I think some of the best zombie movies are the ones that have these special practical effects, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like Dawn of the Dead, another Tom Savini special effects movie. Like, there's a scene where they blow a zombie's head off, and it's just. Like, at that time in 1978, something like that was just not really a thing.
And now you watch the remake of Dawn of the Dead and it's all CGI.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's the lazy way out.
It really, yeah, I agree.
You know,
It's-
it just is. Like the Fly when he's like starting to get like the bubbles on him and the pustules and all that stuff, like they went old school and they lived like paper mache sacks with these like clear lines coming out of him, and then they put it all on his arms and all on his faces, and they would just like have like a bunch of dudes like sitting there like your pus sack 1 through 5, and like whenever something, you know, you just push a button or push air through the line and it just like oozes everywhere. But it's, you know, your mind. But CGI, it's cheap, it's tacky. My least favorite element or effect in Poltergeist is at the very beginning of the movie when they first come out of the television, and it's that cheesy ass white like 1980s painted in smoke that's like creeping above the bed. And I'm just like, you went to the trouble to do all this shit for the movie and then you did that? Like, are you kidding me? You should have just like, I don't know. That just, it pisses me off.
I was listening to this guy talk about like CGI and practical effects, and there was a study cited where your brain, like, give it the most scariest CGI, most realistic monster, but your brain will see that and it'll know that it's a computer generated image. Whereas like Alien, when they used, you know, just a animatronic or like a statue, like even though you know that that's a fake statue, your brain still recognizes that's a real object in the world. You know, it's a physical object and not something that's been painted in.
Well, Well,
So
yeah.
I think that's why, like CG just doesn't really live up to old practical effects. Your brain, even if you can tell it's a fake.
Just like the old Star Treks, how they replaced all of the old like puppets and stuff like that with CGI, and you go back and watch it, and you're like, no,
I
no,
want that.
I want that.
Yeah, it's
can't-
different.
Don't replace the reality that was before. Like,
Yeah, it was perfect as it was.
yeah.
I have the box set of the Alien franchise, and I love watching the behind the scenes. Yes, DVDs. I love watching the behind the scenes because so much of all of those films were people, in inside shells, or like the head of the alien. There's just like a dude dressed in black underneath, and he's got two sticks. And there's like just an alien head on top of his head, and he's just like doing this. But in the movie, you're like, I'm gonna die.
Oh my god! If you saw the people inside those suits in the Dark Crystal, they're all like,
Yeah. It's like crazy. That's what I'm saying. Puppeteering really just, it's like, and the movement, I think it's just the movement of everything.
yeah.
What was it? Alien with Charles S. Dutton, when they were in the prison, they had the scene where the alien was shedding the skin and it was growing almost like into like a dog-like form. And it was so cool. It was like such a beautiful metamorphosis. Like they had like the gel was coming down to look like the saliva, and then they have the clear teeth and the fangs, and flesh is,
dripping.
yeah, like flesh is like coming off of the alien, and then they use CGI to have it run down the hall. I'm like, what? Again, that's like the poltergeist thing. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
Like you just had this cool moment that was real, that required dozens of people to be a part of it with perfect timing, and it's real, tangible things, and then you CGI down the hallway. Make that make sense.
That's it, Hollywood. We need more practical special effects.
I absolutely agree. I would love to see more movies made like the old Godzilla movies, made like the old 80s horror movies. I think it would probably pique more people's interest too.
Yeah.
Because we could do that with better technology nowadays. Why not? I'm sure like modern sculpting and modern practical effects could look just as amazing. Like why we've abandoned this to go for just computer-generated imaging.
Because it's easy and it's simple.
Easy, cheap.
I mean, sure, it gets better, but it's just not.
Does it really, though?
It's not the same.
for certain things, it's okay, but it's not. I don't know. It shouldn't be the running method, I think.
I agree. Back in the day when I used to live down here before this, I would go to Universal Studios all the time. I had like an annual pass for Florida residents. It was super cheap back then. And I really always enjoyed going on the earthquake ride.
Ooh.
Because
That is a good one.
Right? Because, I
You get
love
the fire.
Well, I
and-
love those 70s disaster movies.
Oh,
I
yeah.
love the Poseidon Adventure. I just was watching Earthquake with my dad a couple nights ago. Towering Inferno is one of my favorite movies. And so I loved the ride because not only were you riding the movie, but at the end of it, they put everything in reverse and put everything back so you can see how everything gets done. And then they have you watch a video. They used to have you watch a video before you went in, and that's when I learned about map painting. So, like last couple nights ago when we were watching Earthquake, there's after the first the earthquake happens initially, Charlton Heston is trying to like wheel people down with like a fire hose and an old office chair, and you can totally see that like one part of it, the building that when you're looking down looks fake, but then there's also like the set, and that's what matte painting is. It's basically like they will remove like a blue screen back then or a green screen, and they'll insert it with something that they draw.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, but I mean, as cheesy as that was, like even then, that technology was so far advanced, but it was also, they were mixing, false with reality. Something tangible with something non-tangible.
Basically creating the practical effect.
Help
Correct.
trick the brain. Yeah.
And so I just, miniatures. I love the use of miniatures in movies because, it's like talk about perception is everything, right?
Oh yeah. It's my favorite Godzilla movies are like the ones that are built towns and crushed little miniatures. That I mean, when if you don't know what it is and you don't know how they created it, it really tricks the brain. Once
It sure
you
does.
figure it out, you're like, oh okay.
James
But-
Cameron's an idiot for spending all that money on building like a fake Titanic. He should have just done a miniature. He would have gotten the same result. But or like the like claymations.
No, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? They use that a lot. Beetlejuice is one of my favorite movies too. And there are parts in that movie where they do go to like claymation, and I just think that's really cool too. It just adds a certain effect.
Yeah, it's definitely, it seems more creative than, a lot of what we see today.
Yeah, if Chucky was CGI'd, he definitely wouldn't have been as scary.
Oh, are you kidding me? That
well,
would have
they-
been a joke.
Like, that was freaky when he first went over and bit the girl. I was like, oh, yeah, that's real.
Oh my God. I'm so glad you watched it.
Yeah.
Back then, that was scary shit.
Yeah, 1988.
I was born that year. All right. Well, I think that's all the time we have for today. Kristin, I want to thank you for coming on and talking about this subject with us.
Thank you. And if any of your viewers have not seen any of the movies that were spoken about tonight, shame on you.
Yeah, watch them all.
And please watch them all because they're all just absolutely wonderful. And highly suggest starting with maybe those 70 disaster movies and then working into the things that we're talking about today.
So in the comments below, talk about your favorite practical effects scenes. What's your favorite scene in the movie that you know how they made it? Explain it. Let us know. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at RKUltracast.
Or you can find us at www.rkultra.com.
So follow us because we'll be following you.